want you to picture this. A crowded street, eyes everywhere, voices colliding in the air. You think nobody is watching you, but they are. They always are. People read more than words. They read your pauses, your silence, your hesitation. Every movement is a message. Every expression a confession you didn't mean to make. I learned this the hard way. One careless gesture, one slip of expression, and the mask cracked. That's when I understood. Power is not seized loudly in front of others. It is guarded, protected, preserved in silence. Machiavelli knew this centuries ago. His warning still burns true. The world does not forgive weakness, and it does not reward honesty without calculation. If you reveal too much, you are giving away pieces of yourself that can be turned against you. A smile at the wrong time, a confession whispered in misplaced trust. Even a glance held too long can become a chain around your neck. I've made those mistakes. I've trusted when I should have observed. I've spoken when silence was my only shield. And I've paid for it. Betrayal, humiliation, the slow erosion of my own control. The crowd never forgets a crack in your armor. They store it. They replay it. They sharpen it into a blade to use when you are most vulnerable. That's why restraint is the foundation of true influence. Not every truth deserves to be spoken. Not every feeling deserves to be shown. Power lives in what you withhold, not in what you display. And so, I will tell you what I have learned. The 9 laws of silence, control, and restraint you must follow whenever the world is watching. Fail them and you become prey. Master them and you remain untouchable. You used to believe public space was safe. That anonymity was armor. That people were too distracted, too preoccupied with their own lives to notice the small cracks in mine. I thought the crowd was indifferent, that strangers moved through life blind to my missteps. But I was wrong. They notice. They always notice. You think you are invisible in the crowd, but in truth, the crowd records everything. A glance that lingers too long. A nervous twitch at the corner of your mouth. The way your voice falters at the wrong moment. None of it vanishes. All of it is observed, stored, and replayed. I remember the first time I truly felt it. Standing there, caught in the ordinary flow of people, yet suddenly aware that I was being studied. Her eyes lingered on me, sharp, dissecting. A stranger whispered something to another, and though I couldn't hear the words, I felt the weight of their judgment. Then a subtle smirk from someone who had seen too much, someone who had recognized a fracture in my mask. It was then that I realized the truth. Public is theater. And I was on stage whether I wanted to be or not. Every gesture is a performance. Every silence is judged. Every expression becomes evidence in someone else's private trial of your worth. And the verdict is rarely kind. I used to believe betrayal came from secrets revealed in private. I used to think humiliation lived only in intimate moments of misplaced trust. But when I traced it back, every wound, every knife in the back, I found they all began in public mistakes. The wrong words, spoken too casually. The wrong tone, betraying a hidden emotion. The wrong display, showing more of myself than I intended. And once those mistakes escaped into the world, they never disappeared. They followed me, whispered about in rooms I would never enter, reshaping the way others saw me, the way they judged me. That was when I understood Machiavelli's warning. Conceal your intentions. Mask your flaws. Do not hand your enemies the very weapons that will destroy you. What you reveal in public is not yours anymore. It belongs to everyone who witnesses it. And so I began to study the rules of restraint. I started watching those who moved through the world untouched, those who never seemed to falter. They revealed nothing, and so nothing could be used against them. Their silence spoke louder than my words ever could. Their restraint was not weakness, it was absolute control. It struck me that power does not always announce itself. It does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it hides behind the refusal to give anything away. From that moment forward, I carried myself differently. My gestures became deliberate. My words became scarce. My silences became strategic. I began to treat every public encounter as theater, because that is what it was. And the first rule of theater is simple. The mask must never crack. Because the moment it does, the audience will not forgive you. They will not forget. They will carve your mistakes into memory, ready to use them when you least expect it. So I tell you this, do not trust the crowd. Do not believe in their indifference. Public is a battlefield disguised as a marketplace, a stage disguised as safety. And the first step to survival is simple. Know what you must never reveal, never display, Never surrender in front of others. That is where power begins. Not in what you do, but in what you refuse to do. It stung, more than I wanted to admit. The laughter I wasn't supposed to hear, sharp and fleeting, cutting through the air like glass. The raised eyebrow I pretended to ignore, though I felt it burning into me. In that moment, I was not a man. I was an exhibit. A creature on display, observed, dissected, reduced. And yet, that pain became my teacher. Comfort never teaches. It lulls you into blindness, makes you careless. But pain sharpens. It forces you to see. I realized something in those moments of exposure. The crowd is not passive. The crowd is not indifferent. The crowd is a predator, even when it smiles. You will feel this too. That sinking awareness, that weight in your stomach when you know something you did, some gesture, some slip, has been noticed. Noticed, dissected, and already turned into quiet judgment. Your instinct will be to react, to explain, to correct, to defend yourself. But public is the last place for release. Do not give them more. Do not hand them proof of your weakness. I felt it, the heat rising in my chest, the sharp sting behind my eyes, the urge to lash out or retreat into silence. But I learned to do neither. I learned to stand still, to keep my mask intact, to hold my emotions like a knife hidden in my sleeve. Anger, if shown, becomes entertainment. Tears, if revealed, become humiliation. Desire, if exposed, becomes leverage. The crowd does not forgive your displays. It collects them, stores them, and uses them. So I swallowed my anger until it turned into strategy. I buried my tears until they became memory. I masked my desires until they became silent weapons. And the more I hid, the more powerful I became. Because I understood, emotions are not meant for public release. They are meant for private reflection, for carefully chosen moments of expression. I began to see it everywhere. A man fumbling, his voice cracking under pressure. Instantly, people looked at him differently, as if he were smaller. A woman showing too much affection, too much longing. Immediately, she was dismissed as desperate, needy, weak. The signs are subtle, but they are real. And once you learn to see them, you cannot unsee them. Machiavelli knew this truth centuries ago. Power is not only in strength or action, it is in perception. And perception is not built in private whispers. It is built in public gaze. I started to treat every public encounter as a test. Could I hold myself steady when mocked? Could I keep my silence when provoked? Could I master my face so it revealed nothing? Not even the storm beneath the surface? This was not coldness. This was survival, because here is the law. Once your emotions are visible, they are no longer yours. They belong to whoever witnessed them. Think about that. The moment you allow anger to flare in public, it belongs to the one who provoked it. The moment you allow sadness to slip through, it belongs to the one who caused it. The moment you reveal longing, it belongs to the one you desire. They will smile. They will nod. They will act friendly. But inside, they have already judged you. They have already carved your weakness into their memory. So I became an observer. While others exposed themselves, I studied. I watched the trembling hands, the nervous laughs, the too bright smiles. I saw how quickly people handed over their secrets simply by failing to control their own faces. And in watching them, I learned to master myself. I realized that strength is not in never feeling, it is in never showing. It is not in being unshaken, it is in being unreadable. And slowly, I became unreadable. The laughter no longer stung. The raised eyebrows no longer pierced me. Because I had learned to hold my power inside, where no eye could reach. That is what I offer you now, the law of restraint. Hold your emotions, guard them like treasure, because once they leave your body, once they escape into the air, they are no longer yours. The crowd decides who you are, and their decision is final. But when you master yourself, when you refuse to surrender anything, you rise above their judgment. You become untouchable. Remember this, the world is always watching, and the world is always waiting for you to break. Never give it the satisfaction. Here, the 9 forbidden acts reveal themselves. They are not mere suggestions. They are laws. Break them, and you hand the world your power, gift-wrapped, waiting to be destroyed. Keep them, and you move like a shadow, untouchable, unreadable, unforgettable. First, never show anger. Anger feels powerful in the moment, but in the eyes of others, it makes you unstable. A man who cannot master himself will never master anyone else. When I felt rage in public, I thought I was showing strength. But all they saw was a storm out of control. They laughed behind their smiles. They whispered, "He is weak." From then on, I learned to swallow fire until it turned cold inside me. Second, never boast. Boasting feels like a declaration of dominance. But each word you spill bleeds your aura dry. The more you say, the smaller you become. I once boasted of what I had accomplished, thinking I was admired. Instead, I was resented, mocked, diminished. Power does not announce itself. It is felt in silence, in presence. True strength needs no witness. Third, never reveal envy. Envy is hunger revealed. The moment you let it slip, you declare yourself inferior. I remember the sting in my own voice when I envied another man's success. She heard it, her eyes shifted. In that instant, I was no longer her equal. I was her shadow. Envy tells the crowd you are already defeated. Fourth, never apologize too easily. Apology, when deserved, can be a tool, but apologies poured out too freely bleed respect from you. I used to apologize for everything, every mistake, every silence, even when nothing was wrong. It made me smaller each time, a man begging for forgiveness he did not need to seek. Respect does not live in desperation. Fifth, never beg for attention. Silence is louder. Those who reach, who grasp, who chase, look like children tugging at sleeves. I once demanded to be heard, to be noticed. And though I was given attention, it was laced with contempt. Better to sit in silence, to draw others by the gravity of absence, than to plead for the scraps of their gaze. Sixth, never overshare. Mystery is armor. Oversharing feels like intimacy, but in truth, it is exposure. Every detail you reveal is another blade handed to those around you. I spoke once of fears, of dreams, of secrets. She listened. She smiled. Later, she used every word as a weapon. I learned then, speak little, reveal less, protect everything. Seventh, never mock others. Mockery invites enemies, and enemies remember. For every laugh you provoke at another's expense, you plant a seed of vengeance. I mocked once, casually, thinking it harmless. Years later, the one I mocked held the knife when I was most vulnerable. Every wound begins as a laugh. Eighth, never show despair. Despair makes you pray. The moment you sink before others, the moment you reveal hopelessness, they will circle. They may smile with pity, but pity is the cruelest blade. I once collapsed in front of her, showing the full weight of my brokenness. She never looked at me the same again. Desire turned into disdain. Love into something colder. Ninth, never let your mask fall. This is the law that binds them all. Public is where masks are most vital. Behind closed doors, you may allow yourself cracks, shadows, confessions, but outside, never. For the moment the mask falls, the illusion shatters, and illusions are what hold power in place. Each of these rules is a shield. Each broken rule is a wound. You may resist them. You may think yourself above them, but time will prove their truth. I tested them. I failed at times, and every failure left its mark, not just on me, but on how others remembered me. This is what you must understand. Every slip becomes memory, and memories are not private. They turn into stories. Stories whispered about you when you are not there. Stories repeated, reshaped, until they become your reputation. Your reputation is your shadow. You cannot touch it, yet it follows you everywhere. Break the laws, and your shadow betrays you. Keep them, and your shadow walks tall, even when you are silent. Machiavelli warned us, men judge more by what they see than by what they feel, and what they see is your public self. Guard it with everything. These are the forbidden acts, the laws of restraint. Learn them, hold them, etch them into your very silence, because once you break them, the world does not forget, and the world does not forgive. I tried to resist these truths once. I thought I could live without the mask. I told myself authenticity mattered, that being raw, unguarded, honest would win me respect. But respect is not won through nakedness. Respect is maintained through restraint. That illusion shattered quickly. I remember the shift. A single glance, her glance, sharp as a blade, slicing through me when I thought I was safe. I had let my weakness slip just for a moment. And in that moment, her eyes changed. Something subtle, but final. What was once warmth turned calculating. What was once admiration became distance. It wasn't just her. I saw it in strangers too. A colleague holding my mistake like a quiet weapon. A rival remembering my hesitation more clearly than any success. Even the silence around me felt heavier, unbearable, like invisible eyes recording every slip. That is when I understood. Every time I broke a law in public, I did not just lose face. I fed someone else's power. They remembered what I wanted them to forget. They stored my weakness like currency. They traded it when I was not there. I heard it later in whispers. A joke told at my expense. A story reshaped, repeated, passed around like entertainment. I wasn't in the room, yet I was. My mistakes walked ahead of me, wearing my name, carrying my shadow. This is why Machiavelli warned us. Public mistakes do not fade. They grow teeth. They take on lives of their own. You think the moment ends when you leave the room. It doesn't. That mistake is alive, whispered in corners, replayed in memories, carried into places you have never set foot. A slip of anger, a word too many. A look of envy you thought went unnoticed. They outlive you. They follow you. They are rehearsed in the mouths of others until they are no longer slips at all. They are your reputation. I felt the escalation like fire under my skin. The more I tried to be authentic, the more exposed I became. The more I revealed, the less I was respected. And each time, the silence after my words grew sharper, heavier. I began to dread that silence, not because it was empty, but because it was full of judgment, full of calculation, full of memories I had handed over without meaning to. It is a dangerous thing, to be remembered for your weakness. It means that no matter how strong you stand tomorrow, they will always hold yesterday in their minds. And so, I learned. Slowly, painfully, I learned. The crowd does not want your truth. The crowd wants your mask. The mask is not deception, it is protection. It is the shield that keeps your essence untouched, even when eyes burn into you from every direction. I fought it once. I thought being guarded would make me hollow, cold. But I realized something else. It made me untouchable. The less I gave, the less they had. And the less they had, the more they imagined. Imagination is more powerful than exposure. Mystery commands more respect than confession. Silence holds more weight than explanation. This is what escalation taught me. The laws are not optional. They are not theories. They are survival. Each one broken is not just a mistake. It is a seed. And seeds grow. They grow into shadows that follow you into every room, long after you've left the stage. So now, when I feel the old urge to speak too much, to show too much, I stop. I remember the weight of her glance. I remember the smirk of the stranger. I remember the silence of the crowd, and I remind myself of the law. In public, every slip is forever. The revelation came like fire, sudden, scorching, and inevitably clarifying. I stopped giving them anything to use against me. At first it felt like restraint. Then it became a new kind of hunger, a discipline that reshaped the way I moved through rooms, through conversations, through life. I practiced silence until it folded around me like armor. I practiced restraint until reaction became impossible, reflex replaced by choice. I learned to carry myself as if I were always being watched, because I was. The world records every tremor, and the moment you forget that, you pay. So I moved differently. My shoulders settled into a quiet authority. My face grew neutral enough to be unreadable, but human enough to be believable. I let people see only what served me: composure, distance, a trace of mystery. Nothing more, nothing less. You will feel the shift too. It is not dramatic. It is a tidal change that happens beneath the surface and shows itself in other people's unrest. Their eyes search for leverage and find none. Their jokes die midair. Their smugness falters. When you refuse to feed their scripts, they grow anxious. They prod, they flirt, they mock, but you offer no currency. You are a closed vault, and the world's thieves walk away empty-handed. Calm becomes a weapon. Detachment becomes an offense. They want to provoke you because provocation is how they measure power. But when you give them nothing, the measure breaks. They want to read you, to find the seam, the crack, the human panic that proves you beatable. They cannot. Your silence is an impermeable language they do not speak. And in that inability, control shifts. There were moments when the old self tried to reassert. A memory of shame would rise, a sudden urge to explain, to rinse away the stain. Each time I held back. I let the memory sit like a stone and learned its shape instead of flinging it into the air. Over time, those urges softened into knowledge. The less I revealed, the less there was to be used. The less there was to be used, the more others filled the vacuum with speculation, fear disguised as admiration. Imagination elevates you more than confession ever could. Power, I learned, is not spectacle. It does not roar, it hums. It hums in the silence after a comment, in the steady breath between sentences, in the small stillness that makes others hurry to fill the void. Machiavelli admired those who commanded without noise. I found the same truth in my skin. The quiet man has the last word because he never wastes the first. You will notice how the balance tilts. People who once pressed their advantage will step back, uncertain. Friends who gossiped will pause. Rivals will reassess. The world recalibrates slowly, like a ship finding a new current. In that recalculation, you find leverage, not because you sought to dominate, but because you stopped offering yourself as prey. Detachment hardened into something ethical and precise. It was not cruelty. It was survival refined into art. I was no longer naive. I was not cruel. I had become a presence others could not penetrate, a figure whose inner weather remained private and intact. That intactness is power. It protects your decisions, your reputation, your inner life from being auctioned in someone else's conversation. This is the turning point, the moment when you cease to be shaped by others' recollections of your worst seconds. You become instead the architect of your silence, the curator of what the world is allowed to know. You are no longer vulnerable. You are no longer prey. You are the quiet force whose existence rearranges the room, the kind of presence Machiavelli would have admired. Reserved, impenetrable, and ultimately sovereign. So now you know. In public, you are not free. You are tested. Every step is measured, every word is weighed, every silence judged. The world pretends to be indifferent, but it is not. It watches, it remembers, and it waits for you to slip. The 9 forbidden acts are not chains meant to restrict you. They are shields, subtle weapons of survival. Each rule is a line you draw to protect yourself from the eyes that never stop searching for weakness. Guard your mask, and they will find nothing. But let it crack, and you hand them the knife yourself. Understand this: the strong do not reveal, they conceal. The wise do not react, they observe. And the powerful do not beg for trust, they command it through presence alone. Power is not loud, it is not desperate. It is the stillness others cannot shake, the silence they cannot read, the calm that unsettles more than rage ever could. Carry these rules with you into every crowd, every room, every conversation. Let them shape the way you breathe, the way you move, the way you speak. Because the test never ends. Public space is theater, and you are always on stage. The only question is, will you walk that stage as prey, or as the unseen predator who reveals nothing and controls everything? If you remember nothing else, remember this: restraint is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength. Mystery is not emptiness. It is power waiting to be interpreted, and silence is not absence. It is presence refined into something unshakable. Break these rules, and you will be consumed by the crowd's memory. Keep them, and you will outlast it. This is only the beginning. The labyrinth of dark philosophy is vast, each step revealing new ways to guard yourself, to influence, to command without ever needing to beg. You have now seen the first walls of that labyrinth. Step carefully and you will discover corridors that others will never even notice. So when the next lesson arrives, do not hesitate. You already know the truth. Control is not shown, it is felt, and those who feel it cannot forget you.